come here to Velocity. If you've never been before, what we try to do is try to teach you about what it means to follow Jesus as a high schooler, as a junior higher. So, but sometimes there's just some kind of more difficult questions that we want to help you guys find some answers to, okay? So a while back, I was having lunch with some of my dudes. I'm really good friends with the other youth pastors in Bedford at like Compelled and Bedford Alliance and Bridgepoint. Y'all know those guys, Josh and Dusty and Matt. Anybody? Yeah. Woo, woo. Which one's your favorite? I don't know. Dusty. Oh, thank you, Mark. Wow. Stop. If Dusty was up here, you'd say Dusty. I know you would. Okay, but we were talking about this because there's kind of been this issue that it seems like has almost been plaguing our small corner of the country here. And you know, we have all kind of problems. We have all kind of issues in Metro Toledo and Metro Bedford as well. But it seems like in the last couple of years especially, there's just been like this crazy spike in hearing about teen suicides in this area. So we were talking about this, me and Dusty and Matt, and we were all, and Josh over at Bedford Alliance too, and we were all like almost in tears talking about this issue, okay? Because think about from our perspective, we've dedicated our entire lives, right, to kind of reaching out to teenagers. We've dedicated our lives to loving teenagers, to making sure teenagers know that they're loved. We've dedicated our entire lives to, you know, doing things like Wednesday nights here, Monday nights at Compelled, you know, Wednesday nights for Bridgepoint too, and Sunday mornings at Bedford Alliance. We've dedicated all of that time to trying to show you guys what real hope and real joy and real love looks like. So when we hear about this kind of an issue that's plaguing the teenagers in our area, it weighs really heavy on us, okay? And I've been trying to think of, I've kind of been like really struggling writing this message tonight because I know, man, there's only so many things I can say in 30 minutes that's going to help encourage you guys. If you're struggling with issues of suicide yourself or if one of your friends are, I know there's only so many things I can say. But first of all, let me just say, tonight, I hope you guys at least take a chance to listen to the way that God's word might just encourage you through a really difficult time you're struggling through. And the first thing I want you guys to know tonight is that if you are struggling with those kind of thoughts and those kind of feelings, the first thing I want you to know is, man, you are not alone, okay? In fact, I looked up some statistics about this that really just kind of broke my heart, all right? I looked up some statistics. The first one I saw said that in their high school years, 15% of teenagers will have thoughts of suicide, will seriously consider committing suicide. And beyond that, about 8% of all kids in their high school years will attempt suicide. Now think about that. That's almost 1 out of every 10 kids, teenagers. It's the second leading cause of death for kids aged 15 to 24, so it goes into young adults too. And get this, for 10 to 14-year-olds, it's the third leading cause of death in the world. 10 to 14-year-olds, that's junior high kids. So we're going to talk about this with our junior hires too. So, I mean, and this issue is growing as of late too. I mean, since 2007 to 2015, the CDC reported that suicides among teenage boys increased by 30% in just, what's that, like 12 years. It's crazy. So the church needs to speak about this, right? We need to get loud about this because we're not okay with this, and I'm not going to be okay with this. So I want to encourage you guys. And you know, the funny thing about this is usually we get these stereotypes of what people look like who have thoughts about suicide, right? You can probably picture something in your head right now what somebody looks like or something. Don't point to anyone in the room or anything, of course. But I bet what you don't picture when you picture someone who's contemplating suicide, I bet what you don't picture would be a woman who was a TV news anchor for Fox 2 Detroit. I bet probably what you wouldn't picture would be that woman who's a TV news anchor for Fox 2 Detroit who lives in a really big house up in Novi, Michigan, makes a ton of money, has a really big house, has 2 beautiful kids, had a really loving husband. And yet, if you guys know who Jessica Starr is, if you heard about this, she was one of my sister's best friends. And about 6 months ago, she took her own life. And she was, you know, local celebrity. The Detroit news networks in the area and everything. It's the 15th largest market in the country. So she had some celebrity. She had money. She had basically everything we're chasing in this world, right? Money, good job, power, wealth, family. And yet, for some reason, she got to this point where she thought that was the answer. I remember another time when I was working in Northville, there was a girl who was 28 years old, a woman who had 2 kids, married, everything was great, and then took her own life. So there has to be, it's something more. It's not always the people we picture. It's not always the way we picture it. What it is, what happens with suicide is basically when people get to this point where they just feel like hope is lost. They feel like hope is gone, right? Like there's nothing left to fight for. There's nothing left that's good about it. There's nothing that's good about life, nothing worth fighting for. And I hear these kind of stories. And man, it just guts me, bro. It really guts me because I think about these people and I think about the way that Jesus loves us, right? And the way that Jesus pursues us. And I wonder what could have went different and what could have been different. So what I wanted to do tonight is I wanted to invite Rosie up here. Come on up here, Rosie. And I wanted to talk to her a little bit about her story because going a little bit farther to show you guys that you're not alone. Man, one of the things I'm going to encourage you guys to do tonight is if you're having those kind of feelings or thoughts, to talk to one of us about it. One of us as leaders. We grab that mic over there. That one over there. Okay, well, do it anyway. But we want you guys to know that we've been there before. Because one of the things I'm going to encourage you to do is to talk to somebody about this, okay? And you may think like we don't have the same struggles you guys do. But let me tell you, we were teenagers before, right? And we've had struggles before too. So this is Rosie. If you don't know who she is, she's one of our senior small group leaders. So is it on? Is the light green? Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
They don't answer that question. I don't ask it anymore. Rosie, I just wanted to tell you a little bit, or you tell them a little bit about your story, about what was going through your head when you kind of reached this point in your own life, if you would share a little bit about that.
Sure. So basically, I was, everything in my life had kind of come to this point where a lot of different things were just kind of falling apart. So my mom actually had recently kicked my dad out of the house, and they were separated for about 3 months. At that point, I actually hated my dad. I had a horrible relationship with my father. I also had some issues going on with my mom, my now husband, but at the time when we were dating and stuff like that, we had kind of hit this very broken spot in our relationship. We couldn't really see or try to figure out how in the world we were going to heal from it, where we were going to go. We knew that the process wasn't going to be easy by any means, and so there wasn't a lot of hope in that. And then I also had kind of like all these other deep-seated issues because I had lost 2 of my best friends in a car accident 2 years prior, and I hadn't really dealt with all of my questions and all of my anger and just everything that was kind of going through my mind and my heart at the time. And so I kind of had all this stuff suppressed, and I got very good at kind of, putting that mask on and acting as though everything was fine. I could talk to friends that I had at the time and just kind of put that face on, and it didn't matter because nobody really knew that I was kind of like falling apart at the seams. And further, for those of you guys who don't know, I was sick when I was a kid. So basically, about 4 years prior to this point of being suicidal, I was literally begging God for more years. I was begging and pleading God, give me more years to my life, please, I want to live. And then here, fast forward 4 years later, and I'm wanting to end my life because I didn't see the point. I didn't see any hope in the middle of it all.
Yeah, so now you've been a Christian for most of your life, right?
Yes.
Because we get this stereotype that if we're good Christians, we shouldn't struggle with this kind of stuff, right? Even though you see stories in the news. I don't know if you guys heard about this stuff, but there was a pastor of a megachurch that was growing very quickly, very big. It was about 3,000 people, and he had 4 kids, and he wound up taking his own life last year, too. So what was it like? Even though, man, we talk about Jesus, we talk about love and hope, and you knew this stuff. What made you still like get to that point where it wasn't enough, or it didn't feel like it was enough?
Sure. Well, basically, I was to the point where I actually didn't believe that God loved me anymore. Because in my mind, I'm looking at all of these things that God has allowed to have happen in my life, and all the ways that my heart has just been broken and kind of torn apart. And so for me, in my thought process, it was a matter of, okay, God, if you're allowing all of these things to just fall apart, and you're allowing me to be in all of these situations, you must not really care. You must not really love me. Like it didn't equate. You know what I mean? It didn't make any sense. Therefore, like I said, I didn't believe that God loved me, and then I was also facing the fact that I didn't actually believe at the time that my parents loved me either. My dad was a very volatile guy, which basically you kind of never knew what side of him you were going to get. Were you going to come home and he was going to give you a hug and be happy or whatnot, or were you going to come home and he was going to be screaming and cussing you out and throwing stuff across the room and all that sort of stuff. So I had just this again very broken relationship with my father, and so I didn't believe at all that he loved me. I didn't feel that I could ever make him proud enough or make him love me enough or anything like that. And then for my mom and I, we were kind of facing these rather difficult avenues where you kind of realize that your parents can fail you. And so there were some things that my mom and I were trying to work through. And ultimately, like deep down, I knew my mom loved me, but I was significantly doubting it. And I didn't believe at the time that my boyfriend Josh, who's now my husband, did. And so it was just all of these things that just built up. And all of the lies that Satan just kept kind of spewing out into my mind that, nobody loves you, nobody cares, it doesn't matter, if you end your life, if you're going to end your pain type deal. And so I just got stuck in just kind of this whirlwind of all these emotions.
Yeah, so what was it that kind of brought you through that time? What was it that helped you get out on the other side of it, to kind of restore that hope and that faith inside of you?
Sure. It actually came when I actually attempted to end my life. So basically, I was driving one day, normal day, off to college, not a big deal, and I had been struggling with all of these thoughts and these feelings, and just like, what's the point? And I saw off to a distance the same tree that I always pass by, and I kind of thought in my mind, all right, well, if I hit this tree, I'm done. I'm not going to feel anything, and I'm going to die on impact, and it's going to be fine. And so I was driving, and I just slammed on the acceleration, and I said to God, if you want me to live, if you have a purpose for me to live, if you have a reason that for some reason you still actually love me, you better save my life, and you better do it now. And so I went to take the wheel and turn it towards the tree, and my wheel turned the opposite way. And so in that moment, I knew that God was not only real, but that he actually had a plan and a purpose for me. And so in that moment, it didn't change my circumstances. It didn't heal my heart, but it gave me the realization that, okay, God still wants me to be here for some reason or another, right? So he kind of kept speaking to my heart, like, hey, get counseling, and I kept fighting him, because at that point, I'm thinking in my mind, all right, listen, you allowed all of this to happen. Since you allowed all of this to happen, I don't want to have to go through all the pain of counseling, because counseling to a certain degree is rather terrifying. And finally I gave in, and I started seeing a counselor, and through doing that, I began to see how God wanted to heal me. I began to see how God was there in the middle of my pain and all of these different things that I was facing. And I kind of learned some different tools and skills and all that sort of stuff, and I also began to realize and learn kind of more about myself and about, like, for example, my parents. As kids and as teenagers and stuff like that, we kind of have this very high expectation of our parents of, all right, you're not going to fail me, you're not going to hurt me, and all this sort of stuff. But inevitably, our parents do fail us, and they do hurt us, and sometimes they hurt us tremendously. And it's that realization that I came to that we hurt the people that we're the closest to the worst and usually the most. And if they have grace with me, then I have to have grace with them. And so in that, I learned that forgiveness was for myself, and it was healing in that way, and all that sort of stuff. And so as I went through this process, I realized that there was a reason to live. Now, in the middle of all of my depression and everything that I was facing, I didn't see the reason to live. But now, looking back on my life, I look at everything that I've experienced since the time when I was 17. If I had ended my life, I would have never married Josh. I would have never been able to meet all of you guys and be a part of your guys' lives. I wouldn't have the friends that I have that I dearly love. I wouldn't have seen my parents' marriage be restored, my relationship with Josh be restored, my relationship with my dad, my mom, my brother, all of these things that God was able to do, I wouldn't have been able to experience had I ended my life. When we're stuck in this aspect of feeling as though the only way out is to end our lives, we don't see the hope at the end of the tunnel. We kind of see this light and we just think that it's just this oncoming train that's just going to hit us again. But ultimately, there still is hope.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Thanks, Rosie. Thanks for sharing. Guys, give it up for Rosie telling the story with you guys. So we want you to know, man, we've been there, bro. Like, we're here for you, and we want you guys to be able to talk to us, man, and talk with us about this. But I want to tell you guys right up front, too, because I don't want you to think we're trying to deceive you or anything. If you do share with one of our leaders tonight that you are seriously contemplating suicide, we are going to talk to your parents with you. But the reason for that, one, we have a legal obligation to do it, but also we want you guys to be able to get help. okay? We want what's best for you, and that is bringing your parents involved. We'll go with you. We'll stand there with you, and we'll walk through every step of the way with you, we as your small group leaders, okay? But we want you to know that right up front. And I also want to put another disclaimer out there. We're going to talk about some scripture and stuff, and my hope is to encourage you guys. And my hope is to not only encourage you tonight, but to equip you to encourage people around you. Because chances are, even if you don't have thoughts about this yourself, someone you know will. Okay? And we want you guys to be the beacons of hope and light in this world that God is calling you to be, to lift somebody else up. Okay? So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to look at this one verse in the Bible. It's from the book of John, chapter 10, verse 10. And it might be a verse you've heard before, but I want to read it to you again. Here's what the first half of it says. It says, the thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. So let's start there tonight. The thief's purpose is to kill, to steal, and destroy. In this story, Jesus is telling this story, and I want to give you a little background to what he's talking about, okay? So he was talking to people who would have been very familiar with how shepherds work and how shepherds keep their sheep. And if you're not aware, basically how it would work is they'd have this fence around where they kept all their sheep in, and then there was one entrance and exit to this big old pen where they kept all their sheep. And so when they wanted to take their sheep out to grazing, to eat, lead them to water, they went through this one tunnel that the shepherd would lead them through, and the shepherd would lead them to where they needed to be to get life, to stay alive, right? To eat, to sustain themselves. And if they trusted him and followed the shepherd, then they'd be safe. But what would happen in those times is basically sheep were like currency. Okay? You could steal them, you could sell their wool, you could sell the meat and things like that. So a lot of times thieves would come, and that's why shepherds basically had to live with their sheep to protect them to thieves. And what the thieves would try to do is they would try to tear down parts of the fence and make another way for the sheep to go, and then they try to lure them out, right? They try to lure them to go another way. But what the thief was really trying to do when they would do that is they were trying to lead the sheep to their destruction. They were trying to lead them away from the shepherd who cared about them, who was bringing them to life. So in this story that Jesus is telling, the thief is represented by Satan. It's what we call Satan here in the church. So that's the first thing I want you guys to know, is that there's a guy called Satan, and Satan is a liar, and he's a thief. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. I don't know what you believe to be true about the devil. I don't know if you believe there is one. I don't know if you believe he's a little guy in a red jumpsuit with a pointy stick and he walks around poking like Osama bin Laden in the butt all day. I don't know what you guys believe about Satan, but here's what I know to be true about Satan. His sole purpose in this life is to steal our life. That's why he exists. His sole purpose in this life is to steal everything good from us, to steal our hope, to steal our joy. And it kind of reminds me, Satan kind of reminds me of, any Harry Potter fans in the house tonight? A couple of you. Have you seen the movies? That's all the people that have seen Harry Potter movies. Okay. So you guys know what Dementors are? Okay. If you don't know, we got a clip here. And it's a little creepy, I'll warn you. So if you get creeped out, close your eyes. But we want to show you what a Dementor does. Go ahead and hit it, Jackson. Kimmy, really? Harry almost got his soul ate and you're laughing. All right, that's enough. That's good, Jackson. You can move on. He's safe. He's fine. But if you don't know, Dementors, what they do in Harry Potter is their purpose for existence is they feed off of like human joy, right? They try to like suck all the joy out of a person, all the hope, kind of suck their soul out of them until they just are basically zombies. They have nothing really left to live for. And this is kind of the view I get of Satan. I don't know what Satan looks like. I don't know if he's creepy. I don't know what he is. But what I do know is that his main goal is to steal your life. His main goal is to distract you away from God, who's the good shepherd, right? And God is over here like he's trying to lead you to the best life you have. And you may be here tonight and you'll be like, oh, I'm not religious. I don't believe that stuff. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. This is real. God is the good shepherd and he has a life laid out for you. And he has hopes and dreams for your life. And what Satan's sole purpose is to distract you from all of that and lure you to a way that you were never meant to go. And every time we make a decision other than what God wants for us, the good way that he wants for us, you know, when I tell you guys to avoid sin and run from it and stay far away from it, it's not because I'm trying to like be a good teacher for you guys. I don't want to punish you guys for that. I want the best for you and God wants the best for you. So he has this way for you to go that leads to life, right? And Satan will do anything he can to pull you away from that way. He'll lie to you. He'll deceive you. And when he does, man, he steals so much more life than just the one life he destroys. Think about again what Rosie's life would have been like if she hadn't been around. If she hadn't been here, I can tell you it would have impacted my life because she was the first person that signed up to work with me here at Velocity when I was new. I didn't know anyone. And she was like, whatever you need me to do, I'm with you. So she was an encouragement in my life. And think about if God hadn't have pulled that wheel that other way, how many other thousands of lives. Think about what a great victory that would have been for Satan to steal her life away. And a lot of people don't really think about this when it comes to things like suicide, but the reality is there is a spiritual war going on for your life. There's a spiritual war that started from the day you were born, from before you were born, where God is trying to lead you to his true purposes for your life. And Satan is going to do everything he can to lie and deceive you and to trick you into thinking that nobody cares. Because I can guarantee each and every one of you, if you think there's no one in your life that cares about you, you're wrong, because there's one standing on the stage right here. I don't do this job because it makes a lot of money, okay? I do not make a lot of money. I drive a 94 Mustang that's going to break down any day, and Pastor Mark might drive off the road and into a ditch or something. I don't know. I don't make a ton of money. The reason I do this is because I want you guys to experience the life that God made you for. This isn't about choosing a life that's not who you are. This isn't about choosing to follow God and doing something other than what your mind tells you you want to do. This is coming back to your original purpose for being made, for being put on this earth. Check out the second part of this verse. Remember, the first part says, you know, the thief comes to kill and destroy and to steal. But here's what the second part of the verse says. Whoa, I almost fell over. He says, this is Jesus talking here, okay? He says, my, Jesus' purpose is to give them, being you. The thief's purpose is to kill and steal and destroy. But his purpose is to give them, being us, a rich and satisfying life. Other translations say that they may have life to the fullest. Other translations say that they may be fully alive. Satan comes to kill and steal and destroy, but Jesus comes to bring life. Jesus comes to bring life. That's Jesus' sole purpose and sole existence, is to help us become fully alive in this world, to help us find real hope, real joy in this world. And every time we look away from him and we believe the lies of Satan, then Satan gets us farther and farther away from that true purpose we were called for, and closer to killing us and destroying our lives. Listen, I know there's more to suicide than just, a religion thing or going to church or something. I know people struggle with mental illness, and I know it goes deeper than that sometimes. And that's another reason we want you to talk to somebody so we can help you, man. We want to help you. We want to help you live this life that God is calling you to. And maybe you walking through the gate tonight that Jesus opened for you to be here at Velocity, maybe that was Jesus leading you here tonight because you needed to hear that you were created on purpose for a purpose, and Jesus wants to bring you life. He wants to bring you life. That's what he does. Satan kills and steals and destroys. Jesus comes to heal and cure and but not only the cure for us, but the vaccine. So whatever we face in this life, I almost fell off the stage, we can have hope. I walked too far. I was like, whoa. Oh man. Jesus also gives a little comic relief when things get real, you know. There's another story I want to tell you about a guy that was in the Old Testament. You may have heard of him. His name was David, okay? And David, you probably know the story. He fought the big old giant, right? Goliath, David and Goliath. Even if you've never been to church before, you probably know the story of David and Goliath. What you might not know about David is there was this time in his life before he became king, there was a prophecy that he would become king. But the problem was there was already a king at that time. His name was King Saul, okay? He was king over Israel, and he had heard that David was supposed to be the next king. And Saul didn't really like that, because if David was king, that would mean Saul wasn't king. And so he wanted to do something about it. So Saul set out to kill David. And Saul was the king, so he could kill David, and no one could bat an eye because it's the king. David had big problems, okay? And David tried to run to other kingdoms, but all of them tried to send him back to Saul. No matter where he went, there was no relief, there was no hope for him. So David finds himself literally hiding in a cave by himself. And even in that moment when he had no one there for him, when he had no one else in his life, he penned these words in the book of Psalm. Check out what he writes. This is from Psalm 34, verses 17 through 18. David writes, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted." David knew what it meant to be brokenhearted. He knew what it meant to lose everything. He literally had a guy who wanted to take his physical life away from him. And even in those moments, David was knowing that God was still with him. God was still by his side. Even when everything seemed hopeless and lost, he knew that God was still with him. He knew that God was still there. Now, here's the reality. Here's what I want you guys to know tonight about this verse that David knew, and you need to know it too. And this is our big idea, is that because of God and others, what is it? I forget. You're not alone when you feel hopeless, okay? Check out what the rest of that verse says. Can we go back there, Jackson, to where verse 18 kicks in? So David writes, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he rescues those whose spirits are crushed." See, this is what God does. This is what Jesus does. Satan comes to steal and kill and destroy, and Jesus comes to bring life. That's just what he does. That's what he does, and he does it again. And we get this confused in our heads, bro. We get this confused because we look at religion and we're like, is this something I should do? It might be good for me. You know, I want to do good things with my life. But it's so much more than that. A decision to follow Jesus. It's a decision to trust the shepherd who's minding the gate for us. It's a decision to follow the one who knit us together in our mother's womb, who wants to make us fully alive. So when hope feels lost, God will still be close to us and he'll rescue those whose spirits are crushed. He always will, because that's what God does. And he can't do anything but that. And we get this idea that it's not a religious thing, it's a struggle thing. But God is with us in the struggle. We get this idea that it's not a religious thing, but it's a whatever else thing. And all the while, God is still there, and he's still close to you. The question is, will you look away from the thief and look to God, the one who has the way set for you, the right path set for you that leads to life? At some point during Rosie's struggles, she decided that it was time for her to run towards the gate of the one who was going to bring her life, and she did. And man, because she made that decision, she's married to an incredible guy, well, a pretty good guy. He's got great hair. He doesn't have any hair if you don't know Josh's fault. But because of that, she was there to see her parents' marriage restored. She was there for her friends. She was there for the kids in her group and for all of you. I know you've all had conversations with her before. All because at some point or another, she decided she was going to set her eyes on the good shepherd, man, that was going to lead her down a path that led to life, that led life to the fullest, as the Bible says, as the Word says. So what I want to do with you guys tonight, that's the spiritual truth, right? Satan comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Jesus comes to bring life. So I want to ask you guys to consider some things tonight. And I'm going to talk to 3 different groups of people. And the first one is this. I want to talk to the people first who have ever struggled with these suicidal thoughts, or maybe you're in there right now. Maybe you're struggling with these thoughts right now. I want to ask you guys if you consider doing one of 4 things. The first one is this. Simply identify your thoughts. If you're there, if you're in that place, I want you guys to think about that. Start recognizing those thoughts that you're having. And if you catch those thoughts going on, I just want you to not ignore them and not to try to push them down, but identify the fact that they're there, because the healing can come after you surrender those thoughts and feelings, okay? So that's the first thing, is just identify those thoughts, call them out. And then the second one is this: let someone in. And this is going to be the hardest step, man. Especially after I told you we're going to talk to your parents. If you do tell them, we need to have the right thing to say, right? We always fish for it. We're like, well, it'll be okay, you know? Well, you'll feel better. Well, they're in a better place. You know, we fish for all these words. You know what I've learned about going to funerals? 99% of the best way to care for someone who lost someone close to them is just be with them. Let them talk, you know, if they want to talk. If they don't want to talk, just sit with them. Maybe the best thing you can do for a friend you have that's struggling with thoughts of suicide is to just be a friend to them. Just to be there with them. You don't need to have the right answers. You don't need to say the right thing. Maybe you just need to be there with them and love them. Maybe you just need to be a friend to them. The next thing is this. Take their words seriously, you know? Take their words seriously. Don't take these idle threats of suicide. Don't take them flippantly, but pay attention, you know? Sometimes the only way people are comfortable talking about this is to joke about it. So, you know, take it seriously. And the next one is this, and this can be a tough one, is seek help. I was working at the church in Dearborn, and there was a girl in our youth group who was, man, worship leader, like, she would preach in youth group, the most, like, strongest Christian, one of the strongest Christians I've ever met in my life. I come to find out one day, you know how you guys can have, like, fake Instagram